Welcome to Let FinTech Grow. I'm Ian Horne, and this week I've got a fantastic guest who's just walked into the Dragon's Den on BBC television and walked away with 3 investments. Now, this is a kind of experience that I think founders think about on a regular basis, possibly have dreams about, possibly have nightmares about, and I want to hear all about it. So let's get into it and speak to the CEO of Sprive, Jinesh Vohra. Welcome to LFG. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Ian, for having me.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have you here. I've interviewed you a few times over the last few years. Obviously, you hadn't been on TV just then, so I really want to get into that. But quickly, I know Sprive. I think a lot of people now know Sprive, but for those who don't, tell us a little bit about what you're building.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a free mortgage app that helps homeowners pay off their mortgages faster, helps them save interest just by doing their everyday shopping.
Great stuff. That's snappy. That's a man who's just come off a pitch into the Dragons, isn't it? You've got that down to a one-liner. I'm impressed. So look, let's talk about the show. I have to talk about the show, and I think most of this conversation is going to be about that. Let's start right at the beginning, because how do you even get onto Dragon's Den? What's the applications process? What kind of hoops did you have to jump through?
Yeah, I mean, the BBC are obviously very cautious around the whole process. So I'll try to give something away without giving too much away that I'll get in trouble with the BBC. But effectively, they reached out to me, and I got an email, it hit my inbox, and it was effectively apply. And I knew a founder who'd been on Dragon's Den twice, and so I gave him a call and said, look, what do you think? What's the chances? Do you think it's a good idea? Because I've seen the show, but a lot of the businesses that are on the show are quite early. We were obviously still early, but we weren't that early. And I'd raised some private investment. So for me, it was does it make sense for me to go on the show? And so he gave me some of the his first-hand experience, and he also knew the producer of the show because he'd been on Dragon's Den twice. Yeah. With 2 separate businesses. I think he might be the only person who's been on Dragon's Den twice and once he got aired and once he didn't actually make the final cut. So he said, look, why don't I drop a note with the producer and also put in a good word? And then I did the application, and I got selected and went through their vigorous process, which I can't go into too much detail. Yeah. Otherwise I think they'll shoot me. But I got invited to the studios, and that was an interesting day. It was quite a long day. You see about 15 minutes of me on television, but I was in the studio for in total 7 hours. I was in the den for an hour and a half. So a lot of what makes the final cut doesn't even, obviously a lot of it doesn't kind of make it. So yeah, it's a long day.
Yeah. Well, let me dial this back just a second, because besides knowing the producer, what tips have you got for people for actually getting accepted with a pitch to Dragon's Den?
So got to be consumer, number one, because obviously it's got to relate to people who are effectively watching the program. Secondly, obviously, if you can find an inside connection, you can get someone who knows the producer and puts a good word in. That's obviously going to help. Then I'm not if you put in the application cold, it's on their website, so you can literally go on the website, and they're always looking for businesses to effectively apply. I don't know how many they get. I think the more interesting your business is, you'll stand out. It's a bit like a job application. You write some text on a form, and then you kind of put you kind of hope for the best. Yeah. Then once they kind of get in touch, then there's a lot of strategies that you can apply to really kind of give yourself the best possible chance. I think they, without I've just got to be careful, but they will look at how well you speak and make sure that, you can articulate yourself well, and they'll want to know a lot about your business. They want to make sure you have integrity. I think that's kind of important. And the BBC are very kind of careful about their reputation. Without going into too much detail, they'll kind of assess those kind of attributes. And once you get selected, then obviously you get invited to the studio.
Okay, so let's go back to something else you just said, which is that you're in the studio for 7 hours. That's a long old time. How do you keep your energy up during that? And are you just left to kind of pace around? Is there any kind of distraction? How are you handling that?
So it is pretty intense. Generally, you're by yourself. So you got to be careful not to get too much in your head. Because I've spoken to other founders who've actually been in the den, and they said that the longer you're in there, sometimes you can overthink things. So try to keep yourself busy. Get a laptop. Do some work. They have refreshments. So that's quite nice. But yeah, it's really just keeping busy. I've got so much going on with my business, so it was pretty easy just to be able to like get my head down and crack out some work. So yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the pitch itself, because you've got Peter Jones, Deborah Meaden, Touker Suleyman, Stephen Bartlett, and on this occasion Gary Neville, right? So you've got five very interesting people in front of you. How do you feel when you walk in the room when you're about to pitch to those people, especially when you know it's going to be broadcast on TV? Like, what's the feeling that's going through you when you do that?
Yeah, it's like Gary Neville was the dragon that, because I'm into my football, and so
Yeah.
I see a lot of like Gary Neville's podcast, and so out of the five, he was the one that I thought, okay, as someone I actually know, because as in not know personally, but obviously
Yeah.
I've seen him on TV. The others, like, I don't watch Dragons Den as much as I used to when I was younger. So yeah, but I actually, when I went in there, I wasn't that nervous. It was really strange. I practiced my pitch quite a lot. So if you watch the show, there's an initial 2 minute pitch where you literally talk about your business and you kind of give a demo of your product. That bit is like the most important bit, because if you get that right, in my head, I felt like the rest of it would be a lot easier, because I've raised quite a lot of investment since I started the company as a tech business. So it's very difficult to build a mortgage tech business without raising kind of external capital. I was very comfortable with answering kind of investment questions and questions about my business. So I kind of live it, breathe it. But in terms of like the pitch, I've seen episodes where the founders completely like got
Yeah.
completely blanked out and literally forgotten what they're saying, and that can be very embarrassing very quick. And the dragons are not afraid to say that didn't go very well, and that was the
Yeah.
worst pitch I've ever heard. And that's the bit that you kind of want to like get right, and you have a lot of control because they don't give you that much notice, but you can rehearse and practice. And so
Yeah.
I literally spent a weekend saying it over and over again. I had my kids literally jumping on me and pushing on me and like screaming in my ear, really just trying to um get to a position where I just felt super comfortable, that I just knew it doesn't matter how phased I was, I'd be able to like deliver it. And so that put me in a good position. I just really felt that I owned that pitch, and I felt supremely confident. And once that went well, that really helped kind of build more confidence. And to be honest, I forgot about the cameras, I forgot about the lights. It was
Yeah.
just those five individuals, and it was like, my business is amazing. Let me kind of show these guys how good my business is. And that was my kind of mindset.
Yeah, like obviously you've got experience doing this, which must have been massively helpful. But how does it compare to your typical fundraising event?
So the difference is, I suppose, is that it's more of a conversation when you're typically like, in a room with investors. It's sort of, if you don't understand a question, as an example, you can say, "Oh, I don't quite understand what you mean." You can't really do that when you're on like a one take shot on camera,
Yeah.
because the way it works is you can't say, "Can you retake that? Can you cut that?" It's literally one take, and they have complete discretion over the final edit, and you only see the final edit when everyone else sees it. So,
Oh God.
so
Yeah.
you have no idea what bits they're going to choose and what bits they're not going to choose. So, from that perspective, it's a little bit more tricky. So, a good example was initially, I think Deborah Meaden asked me a question about something called layering, and
Mhm.
I had no idea what she meant. So
Yeah.
normally I'd be like, sorry, I don't quite understand the question. What do you mean by layering? But you can't ask that, because that would just come across like not in the right way. So you then kind of take a guess and go, I think you mean this. And so you answer a question, and then she's like, no, that's not what I mean. But if they have that in the edit, and it did make the final cut, it makes you look like you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
so
saw the
that's
clip,
that's
and I have
that's the
sympathy.
challenge here.
I think that's very context specific, the layering thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, anyone that's watched it, I've got sympathy with you on that one. The other thing is, obviously you did get the investment. This is the thing. You've got three dragons, which is massive. So you had the Peter, Deborah, and Tuka all investing, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
What was the moment that you realized that you had it nailed? And I think I spotted the moment, because there was literally a second where your face completely like lights up when Peter Jones says something. I think he said like, "This is for me," and I noticed it on your face like immediately. Was that the moment where it kind of dropped for you that you were going to get something out of this?
So when I went in there, my attitude was is that I wanted all five dragons. So
Yeah.
that was the goal. So I don't know if many founders think like that, but for me, it was like I wanted all five to say yes, and I wanted all five to invest. That was like, if that happened, that would be like the ideal scenario. So when two dragons dropped out, I was like, in my head, I was like, this isn't going that well. Like because I didn't expect it. I just like I supremely, maybe it's not like arrogance, but I just really believe in my business. And
Yeah.
so I was like, how can you say no? This is probably one of the best businesses that's ever walked into the into the den. That was kind of my attitude. I think as a founder, sometimes you can be a little bit just kind of like what's the word, like just so like gung ho around what you're
Yeah.
doing, and you just think it's the best thing since sliced bread. And when those two went out, I was like, okay, I'm in trouble here. And then you start to think, all my investors will see this, all my family will see this, all my friends will see this. Like, how do I keep fighting and trying to kind of get something out of this? But Peter Jones' strategy, I found, was to wait and just to let the other dragons like just do their thing. And he was the dragon I knew from my research that I did that knows like my space really well. He's on like the board of Howdens, which is a big kind of financial services company. They bought a company called like SPF, which is big in mortgages. And so when he started talking, and when he started asking questions, they were really good questions. It became super obvious that he really liked the business, and that really like massively helped.
For sure. And what were the toughest moments? Because there's a little point in there. Obviously, the edit always shapes your perception of these things. But there are a couple of questions back to back that Deborah Meaden was asking you that seemed pretty tough, especially around profitability and the losses that the company has made. I mean, it's on national TV. I don't feel bad mentioning it. You had answers for it, but how was it in that moment when you're kind of under fire, as it were, and it's getting broadcast?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that I would get grilled on the P&L because I'm a tech company. There isn't a tech company like mine that on the first year is not going to be making a loss. Like, you can't bootstrap a mortgage fintech. It's impossible. So I think if you look at all the mortgage fintechs out in the market, losing 500,000 in your first year, most professional investors would be like, that's nothing. That's amazing. But obviously with the businesses, the type of businesses they see in it, obviously for the normal person watching, 500,000 loss is like, wow, this guy must be really not knowing what he's doing. So I was kind of
Yeah.
prepared for the questions. There was a question where Deborah was like, why have I not heard of you? And I said, because I'm not trying to grow.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I probably could have said it in a maybe a better way, but it was the honest truth. And then I tried to explain how the unit economics at the time weren't right, and so there's no point scaling aggressively when your unit economics aren't quite in the right place, because then you're just burning cash. And that
Yeah.
once we solved that, then we started to think about scaling, and now we're at that inflection point. But obviously on television that can come across again not exactly like the way I just said it now. So
Yeah.
yeah, and you're trying to say it in a way that it's not too kind of technical. Yeah, I mean she was they were all tough. They all felt like they were asking kind of good questions, direct questions, and you could tell they've done a lot of the dragons have done this for many a time, so they know how to create entertainment. And ultimately,
Yeah.
you're the you're the entertainment, so you got to like sink or swim.
No, totally. Well, the thing is, you're more battle hardened than most founders that are in there, I would imagine. But did you feel pretty nervous in those moments?
No, not really. I felt like there was enough in the tank in terms
Yeah.
of just because at the end I think Gary Neville made a comment, and he said that I think we're a bit naive not investing in
Yeah.
Sprive. And then at the end there was like a bit of banter where Peter Jones goes, yeah, Sprive might be the next PayPal.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the kind of the hour and a half, I think if you asked all five dragons, and we're not just saying that, I think all five would have said yes. Once
Yeah.
you got really into the detail, like some of the questions that they were asking was so much in the detail, because they're obviously there for a long time, that just wasn't appropriate for it to make the final edit. But once you kind of get into the weeds, they start to realize that this is actually a really exciting business. But by then, the two dragons had already kind of left quite early.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine as well, like, it's an interesting kind of business, and if you don't have that institutional background, then the idea of a company burning K a month is possibly a bit off-putting, right? In a way that someone like, the other three dragons that invested might be more familiar with.
Yeah, I think Gary was very like, he was like, that makes him very uncomfortable. And he's not a tech he's not a tech entrepreneur. He's not really, that's not really, he's in property, and in property obviously things are a lot different. So he I think that was one of the reasons why he kind of bowed out. It was like, I feel very uncomfortable with that. And in my head, I was like, that is nothing. Like I've met
That's it. We're in
founders,
the AI
I met,
age. If you're not burning tens of millions, are you even a founder? Like, what are you doing? So,
I met a founder just for lunch recently that was like burning 2 million a month.
jeez. Wow, wow. On the money thing, let's look at the valuation that you asked for. You asked for £50,000 for a 2% stake, right? You ended up 1,000 for 4%, if I'm not mistaken, across the three
5%,
dragons.
5%.
5%. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
shared by the three dragons. So, how do you come up with that number? I'm assuming they grilled you on this, but how did you come to that valuation?
So in my head, I thought 50,000 for 2% was really arbitrary because
Yeah.
it wasn't about the cash I'd raised investment. I'd raised 2.5 million. I think it comes up just before I entered the den, and they got me quite hard on like, why you're here, like you don't need, you don't really need the money. So for me, the way I saw it was more like an advisor. Sometimes as a tech company, you bring in advisors and you give them like like a non-executive director, you give them a bit of the chunk of the company. That's kind of effectively how I saw the proposition. So I wasn't too bothered about the actual amount of equity that I would give up, as long
Yeah.
as it wasn't like, sometimes you see some of the founders that go there and they like give away 20% or 10% or the 30% of the
Yeah.
company. That wouldn't have been like economically viable. I could have got one dragon for like 3%.
Yeah.
That was on the cards, and that didn't even make the final edit. But I wanted more dragons. I got greedy, so I was willing to give up more equity.
But yeah, I think it looked to me like a sensible decision, though, when you bring in the expertise, you bring in the clout, you bring in the network of these people. I mean, the value out of that is huge. So, and actually, let's dig into that, right? The businesses that go on Dragon's Den often enjoy a period of growth immediately afterwards because they've got the publicity. So, what's been going on for Sprive since you featured? What kind of attention have you had, and what impact has it had on the business?
Yeah, so the first thing is a huge spike in the number of new customers, which is obviously incredible. Like I literally had on my phone a dashboard that showed how many people were registering on the app, and it
Yeah.
just kept going up and up and up, and that was obviously incredible. And then like a couple of days later, I was looking at my LinkedIn because I did a few posts, and that was all blowing
Yeah.
up. And so I had like messages. I've never had so many LinkedIn messages all
Yeah.
my life. My emails, my WhatsApp, people calling me, like pretty much everyone I know my entire life was reaching out to like congratulate me, which was obviously nice. I ended up doing lots of radio. I ended up doing podcasts. I ended up talking to journalists. I was on BBC Radio 3 times, and so that was like nice. A lot of people at school, my children's school, were like coming up to me, and the teachers were coming up to
That's
me,
amazing.
and so yeah, that was like, I was like, okay, this is kind of like not a celebrity, but this is kind of what it probably feels like
Yeah.
to be a celeb for a day. And then we were like the number one finance app in the UK in terms of downloads. So I'm going to frame that and put that in my office, because that's pretty nice kind of career achievement to build an
Oh,
app
for sure.
that's the most downloaded app in the UK. We're like the sixth most downloaded app across all apps in the UK during that week, which is incredible. Even now, we're in the top 100, and it's been 2 weeks later. So the growth from that, and just people kind of like telling their friends and family, and that kind of the referral loop's just been amazing. So that's been super good. And then partnerships, people coming up to me saying, let's partner, let's collaborate. And you get so many opportunities, and it's like looking for the wood through the trees and going, which ones are the ones worth like doing something about. I've been working crazy hours. I'm like probably dropping the ball in certain places, but just trying to prioritize ruthlessly. We're also fundraising, believe it or not, so raising more capital. So it's all of the Dragon's Den craziness, and then also raising more investment.
Firstly, thank you for making time for me with all that going on. And secondly, how do you manage that influx of interest? Has it created extra, demand on your time? Has it created a need to hire more people? Are there any kind of operational challenges that come with that kind of sudden spike?
So we spent a lot of time, because we knew we were going to be on Dragon's Den, to make sure the app was like super robust, and making sure like the customer like team was all in a good place. And so that the good thing is I recorded that like a long time ago. So
Yeah.
like end of March, and then it kind of aired in like February. So you're talking about nearly a year from when you actually
Wow.
shot to when you actually aired. And so we had time to really like make sure the technology and the team were in a good place. So I didn't have to do like any knee-jerk hires. It was all kind of, we hired during that kind of last year to kind of make sure that we were in a really, really good place. And then in terms of my time, it's been busy. My wife's been super supportive, making sure that the house is kind of running the way it should be, and I've just been very focused on the business. It's just about being laser focused on
Yeah.
where you need to spend your time. My team is quite like self-sufficient, so that's kind of really helps. And yeah, just you'll get a lot of interest, and you can quickly just work out which ones you want to go back to, which ones you want to like be really like short and say thank you, and kind of spend not too much energy on, and which ones you want to like take the time to like jump and have a meeting, whether it's face to face or a video call. But yeah, I worked at Goldman, so I'm pretty good at like getting through a lot within a short space of time,
Gonna
and
say, yeah, but if anyone can handle antisocial hours, yeah, it'll be you.
ruthlessly like prioritizing. Yeah, that's kind of my bread and butter. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And I don't know how much you can say about this, but obviously now you've been working with the Dragons for some time, I would imagine. What kind of support do they provide besides the obvious publicity boost?
Yeah, so at the moment we've like we like spoke obviously after the recording, but we've not spent too much time together. At the moment, I've just been so busy that I think the Draggers, the way they typically work anyway, is when you need them, they're there, but they're not going to be knocking on your door asking how they can help you. It's very much if you need something from them, then you can ask them. Is kind of the general dynamic. So at the moment, everything's going well, and if there are like things that I need their help, then I'm sure I could get in touch. But at the moment, I haven't really needed to.
Yeah, amazing. And one last question for you, Jinesh. What's next? I mean, you've got this investment now. Apps growing, attention's there. Well, what's next for Sprive?
So my first thing is like we're still early in our journey, so
Hmm.
we want to like grow, and we want to help as many homeowners pay off their mortgages faster and save interest, and then expand to maybe other geographies, other debt types. So it's just really much just we've got some really exciting features planned. I want to create like a savings product where the interest you earn on your savings goes towards helping pay off your mortgage sooner. So we're trying to create a shopping AI assistant. So there's some really cool features coming out that's going to help more and more homeowners save even more money. We've got some cool things happening in terms of like a customer every week can get their next monthly mortgage paid,
Oh, wow.
which is nice. And like customers can get like £1,000 towards their mortgage. And so we're just trying to create more buzz, add more features, and then take each day by as it comes and see where we end up.
Yeah, and last thing, because there's always a last thing
Yeah,
after I
yeah,
say
go
last
for it.
question.
Yeah, yeah.
Other founders that listen to this, if they're thinking they're on the fence about trying Dragon's Den, what would you say? What's your advice?
You've got to do it. You'd be mad if you got the opportunity to actually go in the den and effectively showcase your business. You're not going to get a platform like it. Like how often can you put yourself out there, talk about your business for 10, 15 minutes in front of 3, 4 million people? I mean, the amount of money that you would spend trying to get that kind of time, is you're talking about the millions. So yeah, it's a no brainer. And the personal risk is that you don't do too well. But
Yeah.
at the same time, people know what your business does, and if your business is solid, then you'll still get good PR from it. And I've seen so many founders who've been on it, not done well, and they own it. They own it and they use that as when you're a marketing guy, and I'm sure you'd find an amazing way to spin it. So it's about kind of getting yourself out there. And if you're not willing to take this risk, then you need to decide whether being a founder is probably the right job for you.
Yeah, that's that's a great point to finish on. Jinesh, look, it's great to see you doing so well. Congrats again on the funding, and thanks for joining. It's been fun talking with you.
No, thanks for inviting me. It's good to do this again.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And if you've been listening in, thank you for listening to Jinesh and I talk about this. You're about to hear a lovely jingle. That is the end of the podcast. I've been Ian Horne. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Raising funds, speaking the club, drinking coffee, and fighting the fraud. LFG, turn it up and come with me. Big moves, natural synergy. Say it loud. LFG, roll up and listening. Press play, chase the mystery. Ride that wave from Web 2 to Web